Hey guys, welcome to Why Girlfriends English. Josh and Amber here, and we are going to talk about today how to help you learn English faster. So, it's going to be a lot.
First, today we're going to talk about 3 ways that language learners study English inefficiently, and then we're going to talk about how we can use an integrated approach when learning English. And then we're going to end with 4 practical ways that you guys can use to study English in a more integrated approach every day.
So the first ineffective way that English language learners tend to study English is that they try to memorize the language, which it's just really hard to memorize a language. I've tried, it just doesn't work. So the problem with memorizing a language is, one, you're often set this goal, like memorizing 10 words every day or 100 words in a week. The problem with that is that you're feeding your short-term memory, but you're not able to produce or use those. Now, let's just assume that you're able to just memorize phrases and stuff and use them just fine. The problem with this is that English is an evolving, living language. So English is all the time just taking words, absorbing words from other languages, and it's changing its grammar rules. We're changing our strategies. We're changing the structures. So eventually, by the time you reach the intermediate level, you're going to be memorizing the exceptions to the rules more than you're memorizing the rules. And so this is a huge problem if you set out trying to memorize the language.
Yeah, it's like trying to shoot a moving target. If your goal is to memorize the language, that language will always be changing. And so what you're memorizing is a static language that's old.
Yeah, well, and it also just makes you sound like a robot. So you can't memorize acceptable English grammar. You have to internalize it.
The second way that people study English inefficiently is that they don't change their study methods as their language progresses. Yeah. So a lot of times the methods that you use when you're a low beginner studying a language, they just don't work when you get to intermediate or advanced. You have to change the methods. And a lot of our students, they just don't want to do that because it's hard. It's hard to change the way you've been studying.
Yeah. And we've met plenty of students that studied English for years, like 15 years, and they were still low intermediates. And the problem is they were trying to memorize keywords and phrases and listen for keywords as a beginner does, but not as an intermediate. As by intermediate level, you should not be doing that anymore. So
yeah, by the time you're intermediate, you need to be going on into more creative aspects of language learning, not just rote memorization like we just talked about.
The third ineffective way for English language learners to study is that they focus on one skill at a time. So the 4 core English language learning skills are reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And so if you really focus on just one skill at a time, then you are really starving the rest of the skills and the skill that you're currently trying to beat into your brain. The reason people do this is because they take standardized English tests. So if you're taking the IELTS, for example, a lot of you will focus. You'll get your first scores back just to kind of see where you are, and you'll realize, wow, my reading score is so low. And you'll spend the next 6 weeks hammering on reading skills. The problem is your other skills are degrading as you do so. You can't just focus on reading and expect your speaking to stay just fine or at the same level. It's not going to happen. But moreover, if you are honing in on reading by just reading, then you are starving your brain of memory hooks to really sink into and be able to remember something from different views, skills, and perspectives. It's really important, and science shows too that effective learning comes when you use multiple angles and you can remember something in multiple ways.
Yeah. It's also really dangerous because if you're really good at writing and you only try to do speaking, it's really difficult because your brain's just not wired that way. What would be better is if you use an integrated approach so that your strengths can actually complement your weakness, not just try to focus on your weakness to the detriment of your writing that you were just mentioning. So today we're going to talk about an integrated way to do that, which just means that we should combine these skills, not just study them separately, but to put them together so that, like what you were just saying, that we can have more memory hooks so that our brain can memorize and take a really good handle on the language.
The fastest way to learn English is to maximize the time that you are spending learning English. And what I mean by maximize is not have more time, because quantity versus quality, right? You need to make that time that you're putting into English quality. You need to be practicing two things at once rather than one thing only, to the detriment of other things. And the way our brains are wired just makes that more possible. So when you are listening, you need to be writing. When you are speaking, you need to be reading something or taking notes as you speak or something. You've got to be doing something. When you're reading, you should be taking notes. You should be speaking out loud, maybe. Whatever it is, you need to be doing multiple things at the same time because it helps your brain. Research has been supporting this for a long time.
It does take more time to integrate these skills. However, if you look at it over the course of the whole length of time that you're studying English, it adds actually faster because, for example, if I have a big personal library of books and I read all of those books, that's really nice. But if I just flew right through them, then if I tried to go back 5, 10 years later, odds are I'm not going to know what those books say. But if I take a more integrated approach, if I read the books out loud, or if I write a report on those books, then odds are I'm much more likely to remember them. And that's what we mean when we say an integrated approach.
Yes, the integrated skills approach takes much more time. In theory. The thing is while you're doing it, you are building something new while strengthening, solidifying the foundation you already have. And you're using that foundation you already have to learn that new skill rather than just learning new things. If you learn math by learning new formulas every single day, day after day after day, while only minimally using what you've used before, yes, you're going to pass the test with your short-term memory, but honestly, this is how we get adults that don't know basic algebra.
So how do we strengthen, though, that foundation while also building on building those skills? And the answer is some very valuable practices that you can put into effect today.
We're going to give you guys 4 ideas on how to do this even today. The first way to do it is total physical response method, or TPR.
So TPR is actually using your whole body when trying to study. So it's not just a matter of sitting at my desk and trying to hammer out all these words and try to memorize all these things or write this book report. It's getting up, it's using our body and our paralanguage, like we've talked about before on this channel, to actually help us in memorization. So the easiest way is to, if you're studying phrasal verbs, like we've talked about before in this channel, is to actually go over there and do that thing. So if I'm washing dishes, I can say I'm washing dishes in English out loud, and that would help me remember that because that's using my whole physical response and when learning a language.
As a beginner, that's most important. As an intermediate, the way that you shift is that you take longer listenings. You take longer listenings and you act to those listenings. So record yourself speaking a recipe out loud, reading a recipe out loud, go play it and do it. Cook it. Cook following that listening in English. If you have your family nearby, have a family member read it aloud and you have to listen and cook. And vice versa, trade off. Tell your kids how to clean the room or how to do an activity. You can look up videos on YouTube of crafts or science experiments, and that's a really fun way to engage your kids. But listen to the instructions out loud. Don't look at the video, but listen to the instructions and do as it says. It's a pretty great, fun way, unique way to practice TPR.
The next one is probably really strange for a lot of people because it's very, very common, but it's to listen and take notes. And I say strange but common because people do that in school, but the fact is that as language learners, we often kind of shy away from those elementary ways to do it, but in reality, it helps us if we listen to something or listen to an audiobook or listen to a podcast and actually write down not exactly what the person says,
Don't do that,
but their meaning. And if we're able to listen and then write the summary of what they're meaning, or maybe even rewrite what we heard, then that can help us integrate these skills of listening, reading, writing, and even speaking.
And I will tell you, that the taking notes method does not work if you don't go back and review your notes. And what I mean by review is, yes, read them, but don't just read them. You need to do something with them. So my suggestion is that you listen or read something, take notes as you go by using only keywords and key phrases. Do not write exactly what they said, but take the keywords and phrases in the order, write them down, and then afterward, write a report or a paragraph summarizing what you just heard by using your notes as a guideline, or share with somebody, or speak to yourself in a recording and listen back to how you spoke. But a summary in your own words of what you just heard. This is the best way to make the taking notes method work, because if you just take the notes and you put them away and never look at them again, it's not going to do you any good. The third way that you can put the integrated skills method into practice today is by writing a book review.
That seems really simple.
It seems also kind of lame.
But when we say write a book review, again, we're not just talking about an assignment that your teacher would give you. We're talking about try to figure out, what is this author trying to say? Again, summarize it, which is a really hard skill, a really hard writing skill. But more importantly, try to use something else. Try to use other skills when you're trying to do that book review. So try writing a book review over an audiobook, or try actually speak out this book review and try to summarize it out loud or as a speech.
Even better, read 2 books on the same topic, or articles. This works for articles too. And then write a review that compares and contrasts the 2, and then give your own personal response to them. But you make sure you're using your own words. Internalize what they're saying, work to understand what they're saying, and then put it out in your own words. Share that, discuss that. There's so many forums online talking about different ways to do this, or arguing about things, or debating. And that can be intimidating for English language learners, but it's also a really fun way to practice your English. So.
Number 4 is to be able to deliver a speech, even if it's not in front of other people. So when we think of speeches, a lot of times we think of standardized test, or I have a presentation for work, or I have a class, or something like that. But the fact is that if we can practice our speeches, even when we're at our own home, then our speaking skill can get better and better. That's part of the idea of practice, right? But with doing a speech, you need to be able to write out the speech in several different ways, or better yet, just have an outline. And so to be able to express yourself from an outline, instead of having to write this whole speech out and then write the whole speech out again, try to actually be able to internalize the speech and speak it, even if it's just only to yourself, or to a recording. Be able to do that and then listen to yourself again. So your practice speaking, your practice writing, your practice listening. This is what we mean with an integrated approach to English language learning.
If you have a camera, whether it's your smartphone or an actual camera, record yourself. Look at your body language as you speak. Loosen up. Practice again and again until you loosen up. And choose a topic that you actually care to speak about. Like, explain, I don't know, how to train a horse to me. Like, just imagine you're talking to somebody. You're preparing a verbal presentation of how to do something, and write out the main ideas. Speak on it to the camera, and then rewatch that, listen to yourself, take notes on what you're doing and what you can improve, then do it again, right? Do it again, record it again, then watch and mark what you improved on. And you can do this as many times as you want to, but this is a great way to practice performing.
So we're going to end with a bonus way for you guys to practice an integrated approach to learning.
And a teaser at the same time.
And a teaser, because one of the best things you can do is to actually use this in your context with your family, or with your friends, and with the people around you. So one of the best ways that we found that you can do this is to play some type of grammar or language game with your friends and with your family. We've been doing this ever since we met each other.
Oh yeah. It's so much fun too, because you finally get to learn the language in a fun way, or you practice it in a fun way. There's no pressure. You can goof off, and if you make a mistake, it makes things hilarious. Okay. Yeah. We're going to release a video next week talking about this, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you catch that. I want to say one more thing about this. Do not do the integrated skills method if your goal is to pass a test. If you only want to pass a test, that's part of your program at your university, and you just want to pass it so you can graduate, and you don't want anything to do with English after that, this is not the method for you. This is the method for people who want to internalize that English language so that they can use it when they travel the world, go to work, immigrate, whatever they're going to do. If you want to actually learn English, this is the way to do that most effectively. However, if you are just trying to pass a test, just feed your short-term memory. There you go. 3 ways that people study English that doesn't work, an integrated skills method for learning language that works quickly to improve your language and to internalize it, and 4 ways that you can start practicing that today.
All right. And with that, we'll catch you guys on the next one.